Good morning. I'm Deborah Bartlett, and I think I'm the 9 a.m. slot. I'm not sure if I'm introduced by somebody or if I just dive in. Can somebody give me a tip? I'm glad to see everybody online and remote. Wish we were in person when this happens. So waiting for the cue that I am supposed to start, and I'll be glad to start.
Thank you, Deborah. My name is Kelvin from KEPSA. You can go ahead. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
session.
you. Thank you, Kelvin from KEPSA. So, good morning, everybody. I am so glad you're here. This is going to be fun and interesting. Going to look at a little bit of visuals. You're also going to hear my voice a lot. So I am going to screen share as I put it up on what our topic is. And I'm kind of interested in why you guys chose this topic on a Friday morning. So I hope, Kelvin, that the chat feature works. And I don't know if you're my handler for today, but if you could shout out to me if questions come into the chat, because I would rather stop and take them right when they come up. I think it makes it much more interesting for everybody. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead. I cannot share my screen, Kelvin. Can you give me that opportunity to share my screen and I'll put the PowerPoint up. As you're doing that, Kelvin, I will start to introduce myself. I am Deborah. I'm an American who has worked in and out of Kenya and East Africa for 10 years as a consultant and now representing a university that is expanding from Morocco to East Africa. And we are expanding with AI education for professionals, for people like you, not for students, not for youth. But I believe, as a born before computers, as you can see, that we're missing the leadership understanding about AI. And we're surrounded by the Gen Zs and soon to be the alphas. But if we can't keep up with AI adoption, we can't lead our organizations with the wisdom we already have. And likewise, our younger generation is going to be just super frustrated because we dinosaurs aren't going to know what's going on. So, AUI Global is the organization I represent from a university, an American Moroccan University, American Moroccan University. And with that powerful combination, I bring a professor angle, but I actually also bring a strong industry angle. As my title says that you saw, I'm a retired partner from Accenture. Accenture was here in Kenya for years. I focused on change management, meaning how you change and adopt to new technologies. So I can take you back to stories about the first time a desktop was rolled into an office and what do we do with this thing? I can take you to stories of you've got mail, ding, and we all rush over to a laptop, or I'm sorry, it wasn't a laptop then, it was a desktop. And also the impact it had on just how to lead and manage people differently when you took them out of paper into digital. So I've been doing that for over 30 years and excited to be here back in Kenya, introducing what we think is the first of its kind in Kenya. You tell me, but I think it's the first of its kind to say AI, artificial intelligence, training for executives and senior managers, which includes the talk we're going to do today, or I'm going to try to have a discussion with you about AI adoption and roadmaps and what are the steps for you. And then we will obviously want to do a little pitch about certifications. We were in a conference about 6 months ago here in Kenya, and somebody from the audience said, "Who's AI certified?" And again, this was a group of executives and managers, and nobody raised their hands. And I will tell you today, I have a team of about 15 people working with me in East Africa, and they all are AI certified. And I'm not talking programmers, I'm not talking natural language processing or machine learning expertise. No, no, no. I'm talking functional business skills about how do you make AI decisions and apply them. So I'd really love to jump into the presentation, but let me pause there. Put some questions on chat for me. This resonates. This is what you kind of wanted to hear. What's your burning question about AI? We're kind of anonymous here. Maybe we don't know each other. You could put it in as anonymous. What's the thing that worries you the most as an executive or senior manager? or the thing that kind of confuses you? I'd love to start with that question going in the chat. And I'm still waiting, Kelvin, I think, to have the opportunity to share my screen. So I'll watch the chats and see if anyone is going to be typing in a question. I assume you guys have access to chat. Can anybody thumbs up or do anything? I know you're all muted, but is there any thumbs up or any capability like that? Okay, we got Rokaya does a thumbs up. Anybody else? Thank you, LK. Thank you for that. Lynn, I appreciate that. Okay. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds for a question. Come on, type something. Type the thing you always wanted to know about AI, but were scared to ask, or the thing that worries you the most. Okay, this is going to be boring. I have to wait a long time for you guys.
Hey, Deborah, you can try sharing a screen.
Thank you, sir, very much. I see that. Okay. So I need a thumbs up that you guys can see my screen. Yes, no, maybe. Thank you, Mercy. That's a yes, I believe. Great. So the title of this is Artificial Intelligence or AI for Strategic Leadership, Your Leadership. But I really love the subtitle better. Roadmap. We all want roadmaps. Do we just dive in? How are we supposed to do this? How fast? What are some tools? And then I'm going to give you a bonus about how to use Gen Z talent as you strategically lead in the era of AI. Let's see if I can go to my next one. There we go. So who am I quickly? As I mentioned earlier, retired from Accenture, and my focus at Accenture, guys, was on getting the ROI, getting the business benefits. People were spending a lot of money, North America, Middle East, investing in technologies. You hear the stories now about AI is going to be expensive. But it's all about the return on that investment. What is the return? So I pioneered in the US with my colleagues a way to ensure we're measuring and getting what we wanted, not just implementing the new sexy fun toy. Yes, I'm also AI certified. I'm an executive coach to many. Again, with this combination of being a born before computers, someone who's done technology transformation for years, and now I work heavily with Gen Z. So we work here in East Africa from board level down through senior management. Speaking of the board level, we do a lot of training with boards because what we found in East Africa, and it's somewhat this way around the world, but I see it heavily here in Kenya and East Africa, is you really have to start with the board. For example, my colleague Rokai and I were in Kigali last month, and the president or CEO of a Pan-African enterprise in 18 countries across the continent pulled together all of his investors, board members, and CEOs that spoke English. We're doing a second one for the French speaking later, but spoke English. And just to say, this is our strategic goals for this year, and how will you, the board, use AI to accomplish the goals I've put on you, a board member, a committee member, and then, of course, the CEOs. And lastly, I am here representing this university called AUI. This is its global expansion into East Africa. We are incorporated here in Kenya and operate primarily, have clients right now, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Mauritius. I'm joined on this call by Rokaya Diouf. Rokaya is Senegalese Moroccan and part of my team based here in Kenya. We also have several Kenyan Gen Zs who assist us, but they couldn't be on the call today. Okay, next one. So I asked you guys to talk on the chat and you didn't, so let me do the reverse. Let me tell you what I'm hearing CEOs and boards saying. The most common response from the CEO roundtables we've done is, we know it matters, but we don't know where to start. We feel that there's also a group that says they can't afford to wait, but they can't afford to get it wrong. Some people call that the urgency caution paradox. I call that analysis paralysis. And then the joke on the far right is a favorite one of our team members, and I'll try to animate the joke. Basically, somebody yells out, "Who are we?" And you all would respond, CEOs. What do we want? AI. AI to do what? We don't know. When do we want it? Right now. So this joke, if it resonates with you, we found it on LinkedIn, is what we're hearing many boards tell their teams, tell their executives, you've got to do AI and you've got to do it now. I came out of a session yesterday with 20 top executives in Uganda, and their board has been pushing them for 2 years to use AI to improve the business. But again, there's a gap if the board doesn't know how, or the board themselves aren't too fluent. And based on age, they often are not. So again, we start with the board and work down. But now let's focus at you guys. You may be board members, but you may not. So let me give you 3 simple steps on how you can, what I call, co-create your AI roadmap. Okay, if you go back to the world of strategy, and maybe I have strategists on this webinar, strategists will often work with consultants, or maybe they just work internally to put together where we are and where we want to go over, you tell me, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year. I have a big skepticism about using consultants to do that. And yes, I'm a former consultant. I believe strategy needs to be owned by the leadership and the organizational heads. Sure, you can input some expertise or advice or other perspectives from outside the universe, outside your organization. That makes a lot of sense. You need expertise outside your organization. But you, the organization, need to own your strategy to implement AI. So my recommended 3 steps are: you start with the EXCO, and you start with what are your pre-existing or your current objectives. You guys have them. You don't start with, well, what's cool about AI that we can use? That's like saying, let me look at Excel and what's a cool button I haven't punched before on Excel. That's kind of odd. I don't think you would do that. I think instead, using Excel as my example, you would say, I need to be able to analyze data quicker. So let me look into the pivot table functions. Or I need to be able to cross-reference data. So I need to be checking at the control and checks functions. Likewise, if I take it back to AI and your strategy, you start with where your strategy is. Is it around know your customer? Is it growing revenue, reducing expenses? Those are the 2 classics, right? All of you sitting here today have an annual strategy that's either grow revenue or reduce costs or both. Depending on your business, you may have some issues about preventing fraud, reducing errors. I don't know everybody on the call, but I assume you transcend across financial services, maybe extractive minerals, maybe agribusiness, maybe retail, maybe supply chain. So you go across many industries, but growing revenue and reducing costs is transversal to all of us. So you start there. Step 2 is really getting AI literacy for your management team. Doing some ROI demos, making those buy versus build decisions, having those wonderful data security discussions, decision rights and ethical guidelines. Now let me caution you on this. Almost every organization I've talked to here in Kenya gets stuck at the data security, decision rights, or governance step. They get stuck. You know your organization. If you need to set up policies first, great. But guys, you have a chicken and egg scenario here, or a catch-22. You sometimes don't know enough to set up data security and decision rights until you start to use the AI tools more. So I strongly recommend you get online and start to use the tools in safe areas, maybe for more personal or your gig economy uses, instead of just going into endless policy discussions. And then step 3 is the classic, you've got to have KPIs for the artificial intelligence. If you're going to say revenue increase through expanded customers or better personalization of your products or service offerings, you've got to quantify that. Same with expense reduction or error prevention. You will get what you measure. Guys, you have all learned this in your careers, and it's no different with AI. So take what you know in the past about doing strategy and measuring results, and that's the same steps you'll use to co-create your AI roadmap. Okay, I got to take a pause because I got to have like a drink of my tea before I keep going. I'm going to ask if there's any questions. Kelvin or Rakaya, can y'all help me monitor any questions on what I've said so far? Since the participants can't speak, I think someone's going to have to read them out to me.
Hello, Deborah. We have a couple of questions in the chat. So we have a
Super.
question from David asking, hello, Deborah. One thing that is a concern about companies pushing for use of AI but neglecting the quality of the output.
Great question, David. So you're right. Companies I do see, and I'm one of them, that pushes the use of AI, but you're not checking the quality of the output. Super thing you said. I'll tell you a funny story. I'm smiling as I listen to your question. When I first started working with some Gen Zs, let's say 5 years ago, maybe 4, and they were helping me finish a big report, or maybe start a big report. Anyway, a big report. And I knew that this report generally takes a month or so to do based on the complexity of the inputs and the complexity of the outputs. And this guy, I'll call him Mr. S. Mr. S brings me the report proudly in like 4 hours. This is like a 4 to 8 week report, and he brings it to me in 4 hours. And I start to read it, to your point on the quality of the output. And he clearly used, I don't know what he used, ChatGPT, let's say. And ChatGPT hallucinated. If you don't know what that term means, hallucinated is when the AI will tell you an output that's not correct. So I said to him, did you check this? Because basically it quoted in the first page a great affirmation of this institution's accomplishments, etc., by a country leader that had died 15 years ago. And it acted like the guy made the quote yesterday. Okay, this is going to kind of glare anyone reads this. So I asked him if he checked it, and he said no. So I took this 22-year-old and gave him a highlighter, old-fashioned, bright blue highlighter, and said, you go through and read every sentence. And if you're not 100% sure that's correct, you highlight it. And you've ever seen those reports that get redacted where people cross through a lot? Oh my gosh, this report had so much. So it was the beginning of me teaching the Gen Z, just because you got the output doesn't mean it's accurate. And you have to use your judgment and your human common sense. So likewise, David, what I would say is you outsource your doing to AI, you have it do some research, some analysis. Gosh, please have it do the presentations so we all quit fighting on PowerPoint at midnight. But you have to keep the thinking hat on. I'll repeat that. AI does your doing, but you have to keep your thinking hat on. And if you're working with people under 25, you have to coach them to keep their thinking hat on because they don't know a world other than quick, instant results from AI. So that's what I would say, how I would address your concern. It's a real one, and we as managers own making sure the quality is still high. Thank you, Rakaya. The next question?
Thank you, Deborah. We have 2 more. The second one is about the challenge of using personal information as a data set.
Great question, great challenge. So we've all been there before, we kind of know, but let's just say it out loud. If you're going to share your personal data, then you've lost control of it. You share your images on any of social media, you've lost control of those images. You share your stories on Facebook, you've lost control of them. So likewise, if you're going to share your data with ChatGPT, Copilot, depending on the enterprise license you have, it may be different, or I could go to the ones I love, the Perplexity, the Claudes, etc., then yes, it will be available for others. So we use our personal judgment. I always draw the analogy to your house. You know, if you want to have the curtains open and the lights on inside at night, people are going to be able to see in your house. But maybe you like it that way, or you don't care if people see in your house. Likewise, if you lock your doors well, probably you're being reasonable and no one will steal from you. But your children, analogy for your employees, your children or someone else in your house leaves a door unlocked, leaves a window unlocked, you know, there's a chance of theft. So what I usually tell executives is we have to use reasonable precautions, both with our personal data and with our professional data. For me personally, if I'm concerned, I try to anonymize it. Is that super effective? We don't know yet, guys. I mean, I have a DeepSeek account. I'm American. It's Chinese. I ask it pretty mundane, general questions, but the fact I'm asking and I'm in there allows for looking at me and my data. I'm cautious on the classic things. The bank apps are not open the same time the other apps are open. I have not seen research lately that says that's a potential, but based on my technology background, it's not improbable. So I think with all of us, use just like you do with your house and keeping it safe at night or when you're away, you do reasonable things to keep your data safe. And of course, the punchline is if someone really wants to break into your house, no locks will keep them out. So guys, if somebody really wants to get your data, ooh, sorry to be the one to tell you the bad news, but just do reasonable precautions. Thank you for those. The next one, Rokaya?
Last one is critical thinking is a key part of decision making in organizations. Has AI developed to an extent where this key task can be delegated to make the process more effective?
Great question. I love that. In my opinion, no. AI has not evolved to critical thinking as in decision making. Now, pause. Yes, it has evolved to giving you ideas. Sometimes they're great and sometimes they're just mediocre. Yes, it has evolved to analyze data, especially financial data or any other data, to give you insights. Okay, but in my world, insight does not equal critical thinking. Insight is an observation about data, such as a trend. Wow, your sales go down every September, or whenever there are elections at countries in East Africa, there's an impact on tourism. Okay, those are kind of common sense. But that's what the AI is good at, is insights into information. Insights into marketing strategies, insights into buyer preferences. It's not just financial data. But guys, to me, critical thinking, and this may be different than the question, the poser of the question, but critical thinking to me is the so what? So what do we do about it? I had a boss once, his name's Steve, and Steve always asked the so what question and taught me from an early professional age to not just look at something and say, okay, this is an answer, but so what does this tell me? Implication to my business, implication to my client, implication to growth, implication to risk. You can prompt the AI. Here's a key thing now. You can prompt the AI for everything I just said. You can prompt the AI to say, given this data, what are the risks? Given this data, what would be an expansion opportunity in 6 months if I wanted to spend less than $6,000? By the way, those are kind of professional prompts. That is getting the AI to be more of a critical thinker, more of. But for any of you who have studied, the art of the question, I don't know if your parents taught you this. My parents taught me it's not the answer that matters. You don't have to have all the answers in the world. What really makes you wise and sharp in this world is knowing the questions to ask. I'll repeat that. It's not the answers that make you smart. It's the questions that make you smart. So likewise, when you are prompting the AI, you're showing your critical thinking, your human smarts by how you're prompting, how you're asking the question. So I believe the critical thinking is not there yet. If you ask me to project in the future, that's a different discussion, but that's what I'd say for now. Thank you. Any others, Rakaya, before we continue?
That was all for now. Thank you, David, Lynn, and Josephat for these great questions. And for the people that just joined us, feel free to address your questions in the chat. We'll come back to them. Thank you.
So if these are my suggestions on 3 steps you can take to begin to co-create your AI map, I'm now going to go into 2 roles that I think you as executives or managers have in the world of leading in the age of AI. That's a tagline we've used sometimes, leading in the age of AI. The first 2 roles are the direction setter and the strategy architect. On the left is the direction setter. Again, you just need to be the executive you are and go, what value do I want from this? And guys, it's usually got to be tied to what your pre-existing goals are. Your pre-existing goals are customer expansion. Your pre-existing goals are reduce the load of the back office and be able to take on more tasks. That begins you designing the vision for AI. The number 2 one on this, which processes do you tackle first, is an important one. We are living in the jagged edge. That's what the Economist in the UK calls it, the jagged edge of AI. None of us has the playbook that works perfectly, okay? And guys, this is a phenomenon. If you look at any new technology, you can go back to internet, you can go back to laptops. Hell, you can go all the way back to airplanes and cars. When cars were first implemented, we didn't have stop signs and roundabouts and who bears left and who bears right and parallel parking rules. That all took 10 to 20 years to develop. Well, likewise with AI in your organizations, there's no playbook yet. First, you should do it with personalization, or first you should do it with automating redundant tasks. There's some common sense we're all learning, but you all will be the ones learning this. So you start with figuring out which processes do you tackle first. You don't take it all on. Pick something. For example, some banks will choose the chat bot and the help for those pesky little messages we all have, like password reset and my account balance. So they're just taking the old FAQs and putting them with a chat bot. Others will start in with growing their markets and personalization. Others go to the KYC and anything to do with identity verification. All of those are fine. Just pick one to start. Then your level of investment required, you'll have vendors all over you, or your team can try different products and try them out. But the bottom line still with the vision is you've got to say the ROI. For example, I was with a group of executives last week, and they created their roadmap for the next 12 months. And they also created their ROI. So we had probably 8 different departments, and each of them was creating their ROI. And then the CEO was able to say he was going to go for the ROI that was either the shortest, within literally 4 to 6 weeks, he could get the payback, or the one that he felt like was most impactful strategically because it positioned them for greater growth. And those are the decisions you as a CEO or your CEO will make. But you guys have to be the ones that put together the ROI. The second role, the strategy architect, is often combined with the CEO, or it can be a head of a business unit. And it's you put up the guardrails. If you know that phrase, the guardrails, the boundaries. There needs to be a lot of ethical boundaries with AI. Guys, just because it can do it doesn't mean you should use it for that. Clearly, if you're dealing with customer data, there's a rigorous protection of that. Every organization is going to decide which decisions are human and which are AI assisted. And then your organization's risk tolerance. Remember my jagged edge comment? A jagged edge means we're not quite sure how this is going to work. It's kind of in, it's out. And if you picture a piece of glass with a jagged edge, you can cut yourself and you can bleed a little bit. We're all going to bleed a little bit with using AI. We're going to make mistakes. And if your organization is low risk tolerant, you should really slow down where you tackle it first and have it in a non-critical area. If you have a higher risk tolerance, then you can put it in a more critical path. But as my friend Ashutosh says, Direction without understanding is either paralysis or chaos. So in your organizations today, what I see across a lot of East Africa is organizations are either paralyzed or they're just kind of chaotically putting in AI, or their Gen Zs are using it and not admitting it. So for you to step up and say, this is the direction we're going to go for the rest of 2026, and here's our guardrails, is I believe a strong role for you to have as a leader. The next two roles, and there's only 4 roles, so hang in there. We'll do these 2 roles and we'll start asking for questions again, is the change champion and the organizational enabler. The change champion is the one that started to use AI early, maybe an early adopter, and they had some wins and some failures, but they talk about them. And they celebrate those who are using it well, and they create safe spaces for the mistakes. So I'll give you a story of a new friend of mine. He's a general manager in a hospitality here in East Africa. And he attended one of our workshops, brought his laptop. I'd never seen this GM on a laptop before, brought his laptop, and he was going through the prompts and the use cases we had prepared, but then he quickly deviated and started to do his own use cases. And he had a major investment proposal he's been putting together for his largest investor on how to expand a certain part of his hospitality business. And the good news was, man, he was cranking out, got done in 2 hours what he said would take him 2 months. And the bad news is there were a couple of pieces that were hallucinated. So what I encouraged him to do was go share this with your head of finance. Share this with your head of HR, your head of sales. You need to share, this is working, but be careful about this. So when you are a change champion, you yourself have to be certified or at least fluent in AI to be able to do that. The 4th role is the organizational enabler. So this is where you model the behavior. Because guys, remember, your organization, it's just like your kids. You can tell them every day what to do. Don't eat junk food. But if you go turn around and eat junk food, are they going to listen to you? So you got to walk the talk. So teams watch what you do. You can't be saying AI, 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 and just stay on ChatGPT. Sorry, that doesn't really count. So your comfort with AI sets the organizational norm. And my friend Ashutosh, who is Indian, based in India, but works heavily with British Telecom and other UK companies, he's actually measured this at his different organizations. And he told me that one executive using AI, okay, you say you have some productivity gains, maybe you do reports more efficiently, maybe there's some decision making, it's more effective. But if that one executive inspires 50 people to use AI, oh my gosh, that's transformation. And I know transformation is an overused word. I'm using it just because Ashutosh said it, and I'm quoting him. But I would tell you the real example I've seen in startups, in our entrepreneurs, maybe we have some on, small business owners. You look at when they inspire their groups, they can do so much more with less. And they're moving faster to market, faster with prototyping, faster with product improvements. So think about your role as that organizational enabler, the one who's going to model it and inspire others to learn, to risk, and to use the AI. So before I go to this next piece, questions on the 4 roles that you executives have in the world of AI adoption and strategic leadership. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to take it that's a no, and I'm going to keep us going. Kaya, do I have a no from you?
Yeah, we'll keep going with the presentation.
Thank you. Okay, this now becomes kind of the Deborah AI coach advice to all of you out there. Your stage one, your first phase is what we call AI literacy. And we do a series of workshops called Rapid AI Literacy, usually for board members and more senior people, but maybe it fits you too. Frankly, we've had folks that have been 28, 30 years old that have benefited from this. And it takes you about a week. We actually do sessions as short as 2 hours. 2 hours to get to rapid literacy. Then you need to get to fluency, which again, if you go back after learning, let's say 10 basic tools, you'll pick your 5 favorites and start to incorporate them into your daily life. Daily life can be personal and professional because you've got to see what the AI can and can't do. Definitely learn how to prompt effectively. Prompt is the fancy word for effective communications with your AI. Which tools fit which tasks? Perplexity's better at versus Claude, or Grok is better at versus Gemini. And then there's the ethical framework. Speaking of Grok and DeepSeek, some of us have very strong feelings on the ethical frameworks. If you've been watching what Anthropic is going through with Claude, some of us want to use it more. Some want to use it less. These are personal decisions. But the goal is that you achieve personal productivity and you're informed on these tools. And then we strongly recommend you move to adoption, where you actually use AI visibly. I put an example of board reports and meetings, but it can be anywhere. It's sharing your wins, acknowledging mistakes, and establishing the data norms. Because guys, some of you might have some employees that were at the beginning of ChatGPT and they were taught in university or taught by their parents or their colleagues that it was cheating, that you can't take the shortcut. And you know, to everybody who says that, I remind them of my daddy. God bless him. He's gone to heaven. But my daddy used to say I was cheating when I used a calculator. And I should be able to divide 1,422 by 66 in my head. Well, I don't know about you all, but that's kind of hard for me. I can multiply 12 times 12 in my head, but I can't do 4-digit by 2-digit division. Unless, of course, it's like divided by 10. So I think people who say that need to be questioned a little bit, that AI is kind of like the calculator was back in the 60s and 70s. People thought it would take away your ability to do math. Well, sure. Some of us are faster than others because we didn't use one, but we all use calculators today. And that's going to be with AI. It's going to be legitimate, it's going to be safe, and it's valuable. So figuring out how is your job as the leader. So literacy, fluency, adoption. Literacy, fluency, adoption. Now, this is one where please, if you would, take a pause, go to that chat bot. I would like you to start typing in which of these tools you do not know. You do not know. If you don't know all 6 of them, you can just write all 6. You don't have to spend time typing. The top 2 across the top are what I see most commonly used here in East Africa, ChatGPT and Copilot. Little fun fact, at least 6 months ago, Kenya, yes, our great country of Kenya, was the #1 high volume user. The #1 high volume user of ChatGPT as measured by percentage of people with access to internet. I think that's an amazing statistic that Kenyans outperform the whole world in the use of ChatGPT as measured by percentage of people with internet. I question a little bit. I think maybe China wasn't counted in those numbers, but maybe China gets blocked on ChatGPT. I should know that answer. I don't. So if you use those 2, great, type them in. The next row is Perplexity and Claude. Perplexity and Claude. If you do not know Perplexity and or Claude, please type that in the chat box. The last 2 are Gemini and Notebook LM. Gemini and Notebook LM. If you have not used these, I'm not saying you've heard of them. I'm saying use them. Please type that in the chat box. And I'm going to take a look at the chat box if I can. Let's see if I can do that. I want to see what these answers look like. So I'm going to stop sharing a second. And we're going to go to the chat. And there I saw the chat. Okay, let's go back to it. People can all see the chat. So I'm just going to read. So ones you have not used: Notebook LM, Perplexity and Grok, Perplexity and Claude, Grok, Perplexity Notebook LM, got it. Notebook LM, Grok, Notebook LM. Thank you for those of you who shared. Thank you. So I would say to you, if you get one thing out of today, and I can see Rokaya is smiling right now, my colleague. One thing out of today, go check out Perplexity. Check out Perplexity. It is my go-to because it's fast, really fast. It organizes like I think, which is very structured. And as it's forming its response, it tells you all the sites it's visiting. So it's like talking to somebody who says, you ask them the question of, where's the best place to vacation in South Africa? And the person starts responding, well, I really like beach resorts, and I really like to go glamping, and I really like to do things with my children. So right there, you know the person's criteria or rationale as they're talking. Perplexity does a similar. So you can immediately tell it's going to sites that you trust, sources you trust, or not. I also like Perplexity because you can put it in the output you want, a table, a list. And then my favorite Perplexity prompt is try again. When I don't believe its answer, I'm testing it on the hallucination. So I'll say try again. I believe those population statistics are too large for 2025, or try again. I don't think you included Ethiopia in East Africa, and Perplexity will correct itself. So I believe, advice to you all, the AI tools for your decision making, just like how the internet changed our world on getting information, these AI tools can change your world on how you make decisions. So suggest you check out these when you get a chance. The next step after knowing these basic tools, and those tools are just kind of basic, what we call open or general purpose use. The next that we see a real need for here in Kenya, and we're hearing that there's not a lot of offerings, AUI Global is one of them, is AI certifications for executives. Certifications for executives, where Kenyan business leaders who are leading AI adoption need to have internationally accredited certifications. So this is not go learn how to do a large language model. This is not go how to code. This is you as a head of sales, a head of risk, a head of commercial, getting AI certified. And you can see the list on the left has about 8. I think overall we have about 20 available. And I want you to see how this looks for you to get AI certified. This is not Coursera. Oops, sorry, that's the bonus. This is not Coursera. This is not a free Microsoft. No offense to Microsoft, who's one of the co-sponsors. This is serious for you to catch up. And what I mean by catch up, the AI natives know these things because they've already been out there using AI for a few years. Those of you who have not need to understand a bit of history, a bit of structured data, unstructured data, just a bit, so that you can talk to your technology partners. You can really co-create with them solutions. But if you're not fluent enough in how AI works in your line of business or could work, the other thing on certification, it keeps you current because this stuff is changing quickly. If you put on your news cycles every morning just to what's new happening, you'll overwhelm yourself. But something like a certification, at least through the AUI Global one, we vet for you what's the most relevant, for example, with agentic AI. And we update you regularly on that, things that are relevant to you so that you can get through the noise of all the changes. I'm going to attempt to see if this video works. It's a short video, bear with me. See if this comes through on your phones and your devices.
In today's world, AI isn't just the future, it's now. And at AUI Global, we're empowering East African executives to lead this transformation. We offer 19 specialized AI certifications, from AI for marketing and finance to prompt engineering and AI ethics. Learn your way. Choose between videos, podcasts, audiobooks, or ebooks. Study from anywhere, your office, your home, anywhere that suits you, even on your commute. Our flexible formats fit your busy executive lifestyle. But it's not just theory. Our hands-on activities and gamified learning let you apply AI concepts to real business challenges tailored to your industry. Pass your final exam and earn an internationally recognized AI certificate that validates your expertise to the world. Transform your career. Transform your business. Join East Africa's AI leaders today.
So we'd like to show that because we realize and believe that here in Kenya, you business leaders need to be AI certified so that you can lead not only your strategies, but those results. And the part we're going to talk about next, leading those Gen Zs. So I'm going to take a pause. That was a lot to take in, and ask Rukaya if there's any questions, and take a pause and let folks put some questions in. This makes it much more interesting. I could pull on David and Lynn again, but would love to hear from some others. We've got 63 people on the call. Come on, guys, bounce me some questions. Give me a tough one. Rukaya, any questions coming through?
I have a question from Samuel asking, are there any cost implication for the certification? If yes, how much?
Thank you very much, Samuel, for asking. Yes, the certifications are $1,200 per certification per person, $1,200. And I need to focus on value here as much as you can focus on cost. The value of them, because that is much more than things you'll see in the Kenyan market, much less than you going to Dubai or to London. What you get is not only about 8 hours of, as the video said, you can do videos, you can do podcasts, you can do books. You get a lot of hands-on exercises. A lot means in addition to these general tools we kind of showed you, which are used some in the certification, you get specialized tools just for finance. For example, stock market items, just for sales, things that work with predictive customer behavior. And with each certification, you go hands-on with the data set that we give you, and you actually create the solutions or the insights yourself. So this is not watching a talking head for 2, 4, 6, 8 hours. It's you having to produce outputs using AI. The last thing, maybe 2 other things you get, is we leave the portal up. You have a learning portal, private to you, that stays live for 12 months. I first got my certification in AI about a year ago, and I'm still going back to my portal about once a week to check something or to remind myself of using a tool that at the time it wasn't relevant to me, but now it is. The last thing it gives you, which I think is pretty powerful, is the Agentic AI updates. Agentic AI is the next wave of changes that we need to figure out how to lead and manage. And that module in this training is updated about every week because the changes are so rapid. The other modules about how the data works or the ethics stay pretty static. And then this certificate is ISO certified, the ISO 17024 you see at the bottom of the screen. In addition, it comes through our university. I mentioned earlier, if you weren't on, I represent an American university in Morocco. It's one of 4 universities on the continent that are accredited. You've got one here in Kenya, there's one in Egypt, one in Rwanda, and ours in Morocco. And our accreditation comes through the New England Commission of Higher Education, which also accredits Harvard and Yale. So with this accreditation, you're getting the ISO certified from a university that is accredited with the same USA group as Harvard and Yale. So we believe that this accreditation really sets you apart. The last is it is a credential you can put on your LinkedIn. We have found with some leaders, it really, what do I want to say? From an image point of view and a brand point of view, it really helps credentialize them with winning tenders, with winning new customers, with recruitment. And then, of course, if you're at a stage of your career, you're wanting to move up or move differently, it gives a credential that really is the make or break. It's really the credential that puts you ahead of everybody else. Thank you for that question. Thanks, Samuel. Any other questions?
One additional question from Susan asking, apart from Perplexity, which other AI you would personally recommend?
That is a great question, Susan. So before I get off the certifications, there's like, for every one of these certifications, there's at least 10 to 40, Executives has 40 tools in it. So we don't have enough time for me to go through all the ones I love, but I'll go back to this list. True confessions, let's just have true confessions here. I don't use ChatGPT or Copilot at all. Copilot doesn't really help me. My team says I'm not using it properly, which could be, but it doesn't help me. Perplexity and Claude are my favorites. Claude, as it says, does long document analysis. It gives me, what do I want to call it? Opinioned insights. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. I'm struggling with a strategy I'm trying to work on for maybe a new market penetration, or I'm trying to figure out how I'm doing in performance and my usual methods aren't working, sales or ROI or whatever. And I can give Claude, for example, the last 6 updates I gave my boss, whether those are board reports, committee reports. I can throw in Claude a forecast of the economic output or outcome, the economic forecast of a country. And I can say to it, act like a McKinsey consultant. Okay, you following me? McKinsey consultants, for those of you who are familiar with it, they have a very unique style in how they can digest through what really matters. It's called MECE, M-E-C-E. It's an acronym, M-E-C-E. It means mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive, I think. But basically, it's a way to think that's very tight framework. And I will tell Claude, taking these 25 documents, I want to have a McKinsey-style MECE approach to explain to my boss this question, and I want it, you're going to laugh at this one. I want it written as a prompt for another AI. Okay, I know I'm getting complicated here. So first it can just give me the output, and it gives me a really tight outline, like a Word document outline. But then I tell Claude to write it as a Gamma prompt. I don't have Gamma on this sheet. Gamma creates presentations and I guess websites and some other social media stuff, but I use it for presentations. And I give Gamma my Claude prompts, and I have a kick-ass presentation. So Perplexity and Claude, to answer your question. The bottom 2, Gemini and Notebook LM, I use less as an executive, but I do have some of my colleagues who are more senior manager level really appreciate these and use these. And you're going to find your Gen Zs use Notebook LM a lot. A lot of them had this in college, and they continue to use it in the workplace. So thank you for that question. Next question, Rokhaya?
That was all for now. Oh, we have a new one. Will certificates of participation be issued? Just asking out of curiosity.
Certificates of participation for today or when you do this certification?
I'm not sure, Dominic, if you could answer that. Another question coming from Samuel is asking about potential partnerships when it comes to training delivery with Lish AI Labs. How will that look for you?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Lish AI Labs would like to know if there is any room for partnerships in training delivery.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll have a contact here at the end. We would love to talk to anyone here in Kenya who's interested in partnerships on delivery. We have a couple of boundaries or guardrails. For example, we really aren't doing a lot with youth right now. We might get into that space, but we really are focused on the over 30s business managers slash leaders. But Rokai, who's talking to me at the end, will have a slide that's got her email and phone and WhatsApp. So please take that down. So stay with us a few more slides and take that down.
We have one more question from Samuel asking how do we stay ahead in this rapidly changing space?
Great question. I personally have 3 disciplines or 3 actions I do to stay ahead in this rapidly changing. First, I do read a lot of what's happening, but I pick my sources, Samuel, very carefully. So, because otherwise you'll overload. My favorite source is The Economist out of Britain, out of the UK. I find its readings and its analysis the best and always puts it in context. So in terms of keeping up with AI or what's happening, whether you look at the ethical dimension, the social dimension, the critical thinking brain dimension, the job impact dimension, they have a great online magazine. They have podcasts that come out every weekend. That's my go-to. The second is I use AI probably every other hour of my work day. And so I think you need to actually be using it so you have your own personal experience, not just listening to somebody else tell you what Anthropic changed their Claude model to be ABC. You need to be experiencing yourself. But really, Samuel, I'm going to tell you my third one, and this is the big one on how you stay ahead. Surround yourself with Gen Zs that are smarter than you. Surround yourself with Gen Zs that are smarter than you. And I'm serious about this. We all know the old adage that good leaders surround themselves with people smarter than themselves. Because why would you surround yourself with people that aren't as smart as you or dumber than you? I mean, that's not a formula for a great achievement. That's a formula to make your ego feel good. But for me, my team right now here in East Africa, depending on who you count, I have about 15 Gen Zs with me. And back in Morocco with the university and a department I manage there, we have about 30 Gen Zs with about 4 non-Gen Zs. That's the ratio, 4 to 30. And guys, it is how I've kept up because they tell me stuff every day I didn't know. And if you attempt to do the old fashioned and be out there reading and finding it yourself, no. So it's Gen Zs, it's experience yourself, and pick 1 or 2 trusted media outlets and follow them, is what I would say. Any others, Rukaya?
That's all for now. Yeah.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to shift a little bit from the AI part to a bonus piece, which is the formal name is multi-generational leadership. The subtitle would be how to stop my Gen Zs from driving me crazy. And I probably need to see in the chat, is anybody struggling with Gen Zs in their workplace? Or is everybody just totally happy with them? Can y'all like type a word in your chat, happy or frustrated or pleased or going crazy? Type something in the chat. I'm going to take a look at this chat. Type something in the chat, please. Oops, wrong place to go. I'm going to look at the chat because I want to see what people are saying. Crazy, yeah. Oh, can one join my team in Kenya? We can talk about that. Yes, crazy. Most of the great technological developments are highly regarded. Okay, problematic Gen Z needs to be managed. Oh, you are the problematic Gen Z. Thanks, Lynn. Context mission. Okay, so for those Gen Zs on here, Lynn, thank you for confessing or telling. You'll have to, like, you can judge me. I give you permission to judge me. Be kind on what I'm about to say to see if it resonates with you. Thank you, David, for what you're saying. Different breed, need to understand them. Moses, I'm glad you're pleased. Good, good. Okay, let me go back to sharing this piece and get y'all's opinion about it. So, as I dive into this piece, let me give you a context. In September, I did a few webinars and face-to-faces with some professional services organizations. I can't name their names, but professional service like consultancies here in East Africa who were really struggling with the multi-generational leadership. And it made me realize I had gone through this struggle myself about 4 years ago. Again, I'm based at a university, so I'm surrounded by Gen Zs. They outnumber us. So I had the unusual and unique opportunity to be immersed in Gen Zs as my students. And then I run this Office of Employability and Entrepreneurship at the AUI University in Morocco. And I made the decision early on, it was a new unit, we launched about 5 years ago. I made the decision that all my employees would be Gen Z students because they're my customers. Why would I, the 60-year-old American woman or my 30-year-old Moroccan employed relations manager, why do I need more of them? I need the target customers, which are the students. We're trying to help the students get jobs or investors before graduation. So this started my journey of diving in. The second credential I have is I have 3 children who are Gen Zs, 25, 23, 25 and 23. So they have helped me on my journey more than anybody. And for those of you that have adult children, you should listen to them. So that's kind of my credentials for this next piece. I've learned it on the ground and my children have coached me. So I believe Gen Zs are your secret weapons. Seriously, they are secret weapons. They are AI natives. And again, a little definition, the Gen Zs are the ones that were born between 95 and 09. They're under 30. They are so used to daily learning new stuff. Some of us that are older, those used to be like training plans and you had to think about learning something new. That is not who these guys are. Second, they're very career focused. They really want the career progression, and this can drive you crazy. An example, I have some Gen Zs who need a new title like every couple of weeks, that want to have new responsibilities when I think they barely got what they just did. I'll have my daughter who works in the US say, I've been doing this for 3 weeks. It's time for me to move on. And I'm like, what? Really? So the time frame is really different on progression. The third is the empathy side. They really need to connect with their supervisor and feel like they have a very approachable leader or supervisor. Okay, I think Gallup has proven this even before the Gen Zs, that we all kind of join a company based on our vision of where it's going to take us. Maybe we like its mission, maybe the salary is good, maybe the logistics are good, like its location or whatever. But across the world, Kenya, Africa, Europe, North America, one thing is true on why people leave. The number one reason people leave is not money, is not the spouse got relocated. It's because of conflict or don't respect the immediate supervisor. The immediate supervisor. So if you are working with Gen Zs and want to keep them, you may have to kind of modify or change the style you use because they really want empathy, approachable, and clear communications. I've come up with these 5 steps or strategies that I have found really engage Gen Zs and help them and AI be used even more in your organization. The first one is hybrid work. I'm not that comfortable yet in Kenya, seeing what the habits are. I mean, I work hybrid, but I will tell you for the Gen Zs I've worked with across Africa, this is a non-negotiable. And if you think they have to be in the office every day, I think they'll walk away, or definitely you'll lose them emotionally. And the ability to work hybrid shows that you trust them and that builds loyalty. And they won't be so quick to jump because Gen Zs really are loyal if you speak their loyalty language. The second is what I call ABCD task layers. What's that mean? The Gen Zs need to remember that thing I said before, they're constantly learning. They need to be constantly learning. So remember I told you the story about the guy, Mr. S, who I gave him a report to do, and I thought it would take a month, and he gave it to me in 4 hours? I have learned with him, he has to have task layers. So the A task is what has to be done now, today, or in the short term. The B task is important, but it doesn't have the same urgency. So in the olden days, I would wait and give him B when A was done. Gen Zs don't work that way. Gen Zs want to have the B task because they get so easily restless or bored or need to stop, and they want to jump to their next task. And if you frustrate them by holding up giving that task in an old-fashioned work delegation mindset, you're going to frustrate them. C is very similar. It's like, okay, let me give you something. Actually, it's not very similar. C is, this is a stretch. I don't know if you're going to be able to do this. This is like what I would ask somebody who's been around a year or two longer than you to do. So it's the stretch goal. Okay, so A is the immediate. B also kind of has to be done, but not as immediate. It's the thing they would do once they finish A, but you give it to them early. C is the stretch. And D is the, pardon my French, D is the shit work. D is, okay, somebody's got to go clean out the closets. Okay, somebody's got to go organize all those materials or those books. And man, you know, they're still junior, they still have to do the shit work. But if you give them all four, they then decide the order they do them. They have agency. They have control over their work. So that's a thing I've learned that works really well. Number 3 is feedback every 4 hours. What? Feedback every 4 hours? It's hard, I know, but specific empathetic connection to something. So for example, it could just be a, hey, that email you wrote was great. Love to see more like them. Or it can be, you know, I know you've been really swamped, but I need to see that update before you go to bed at night. Really short, really easy. And best if they're connected to purpose. I really need to see that update before you go to bed at night because our budgeting cycle's coming up and I'm scared we may not get our funding back. And I need to give this feedback. So tie it to a purpose of why, not just a random, I need this. Number 4 is mini promotions every 1 to 2 months. Guys, they don't have to be the official promotion. They don't have to come even with salary changes. Just valuing them, saying, you know, you were my logistics coordinator, now you're my senior operations coordinator. Or wow, you were our sales lead, now you're our global collaboration lead. So you find what's important to them. Guys, names don't cost you anything. But you know how egos are, young and old, and how we tie our identity to our job titles. We shouldn't, but we do. So that's a thing you can affirm with them. And the last is you give them leadership roles early and watch them rise. Seriously, I put all the Gen Zs I work in, what most people would say is way over their head, and they rise to the occasion. Yes, we have to catch a few errors. Yes, there's some mistakes made, but they will rise faster if you let them. So those are my 5 strategies. Would love some quick feedback from anybody. Does it resonate, not resonate? I got to go back and look at the chat myself to see what you're saying.
A question from Grace.
Super.
Asking, in your experience, what is the single biggest strategic mistake organizations make when integration AI into their 3 to 5 business plan?
Okay, I'm going to say it back to you. The strategic mistake organizations make when?
Integrating AI into their 3 to 5 business plan.
Oh, the 3 to 5 year business plan?
Yes, correct.
I would say the single biggest error they make, Grace, so thank you for that. I think that's good. First, no offense, I I don't think you can go 3 to 5 years. I mean, look at 3 years ago and 5 years ago. So I think the biggest strategic mistake is trying to put it in 3 to 5 years. For me, I only do the remainder of the fiscal year. So if your company is on a calendar year, the strategy I would help you do here in March or April would just take you to December. One, your people are going to be a lot smarter. Two, you need to determine the ROI. And three, the capabilities technologically will be different in 9 months, significantly different. So I think the single biggest mistake is sitting back and really trying to forecast where the world is going in the next 3 to 5 years, and then doing a strategy that is not going to be relevant or impactful. That would be, I would say, is the biggest mistake.
We have another question from Joffrey asking, every generation has been labeled difficult at some point. Now it's Gen Z's turn. What's actually happening is a shift expectations, especially around communication speed and the use of technology. I think it was more of a statement than a question.
Yeah, Shofi, and let me just comment on it. I agree with you. In fact, when I used to have these discussions, I would say to people, and maybe you've said this, Shofi, I'd be like, don't you think our parents or your boss sat around and said the same thing about us whenever we were 22 or 25 years old? Every generation has it. I think two things are different with this, where we are today in 2026. One is the multi-generational. I think it's the first time in history, you know Kenya better than I do, but I think East Africa, and I could speak to North Africa and North America, where you have the me's of the world. I'm a baby boomer in American language, or a born before computers here. I'm 63, where I'm still active in the workplace at the same time a 23-year-old is. So that's a 40-year age span. And I think in most cultures, the me's of the world start to retire, but you're seeing that we don't retire as soon now. And then you've got the young ones coming in that had a far different upbringing because of the digital natives and AI natives. So it's a little bit different than being raised with the internet or a smartphone or television, is what I would say. But you're right, there's still a fundamental part that's the same. Yeah.
We have
Okay.
one additional question from
Yes.
Yamura asking, in your opinion, the biggest challenge have witnessed is the mental shift from managers, accepting the management styles that need to change with Gen Zs.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And that's a great segue into my next piece. Thank you for that. Your management style will have to change. You know, yesterday I was with the group and I forget how it topic came up, but I said to them, guys, the Gen Zs aren't going to change. The people that are going to have to go through culture change are going to be you. It's like, go look in a mirror. So I would give you these tips I have learned in kind of managing Gen Zs with the thought that you want to keep them. If you're an organization that wants a lot of turnover, then you can just like zone out right now. But what I have seen to really, and turnover can mean physical turnover and mental turnover, right? They can physically be there, but they're not engaged. So this is how to reduce turnover or increase engagement, is how I should have probably phrased it. One is you lead with what you liked that they did. You lead with what you liked that they did. Now, this works with a lot of generations. You start every conversation with genuine recognition of, you were really great when you did this, or I appreciate you helping so-and-so out. Very specific. Number two is you tell them what to improve with the rationale or the why. They're very into the reasoning, and they're skeptical if they're not going to be just follow orders. They need to know why you need something. Third is connect their work to a purpose daily. Explicitly show how their contribution fits into the mission. Because, using the car analogy, purpose is their fuel. The fuel, the gas that gives them energy is purpose. Okay? Back in my generation, it was performance. Other people, it's maybe mission. Theirs is a purpose they must connect to. And the last one, I said it before, and most people just freak. You really need to connect every day to build trust. And it's tough when you're working remote. My employees are all remote. but it's brief, sharing a funny emoji, something that reduces the isolation and makes sure they know they matter. Because they'll send off mixed signals, like they want to be independent, they have a lot of agency, they can do what they want, but you've got to check in with them on a regular basis. So those are my suggestions for the kind of management style that, at least for some of us, a lot of millennials I know, a lot of Gen X's have had to change their style to do this. And you'd have to ask yourself if it's a change. That's going to bring me to the close of our presentation. I'm welcome to take more questions if we have them. I see our group sitting at about 70 still. What other questions do you have?
We have one question from Tobias asking, how can organizations and governments in Africa engage the Gen Z battalion to actually accomplish real, useful, and productive work in what matters most to the society over time, like industry, infrastructure, and technological applications?
Ooh, that's a big question. Okay, repeat it. I got most of it. Just one more time.
How can organizations and governments in Africa engage the Gen Z battalion to actually accomplish real, useful, and productive work in what matters most to the whole society over time, like industry, infrastructure, and technological applications?
Thank you, Tobias, for that. That's a loaded question. I think I would start with your phrase, matters most. You have to find the common ground that it matters most to them. And I don't think we can impose. I may think children's safety matters most in our continent right now, or I may think that women's health matters most. But no offense, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the Gen Z thinks. And if you take the time to ask them, they'll have a definite opinion. It may be about climate. It may be about women's rights. It could be about job creation. Listen to them and then tie what matters most to them to your agenda. So if your agenda is something about infrastructure, figure out that they care about women's health and show how the infrastructure is needed to get women to be able to get to hospitals, or women to be able to have Wi-Fi so they can do self-diagnosis of whatever. I'm giving some examples here, but I would say it's get them to matter most. Frankly, Tobias, I can't answer your question from what should governments do. I am very much a private sector capitalist, and I was raised in a culture that was minimal government and let the private sector drive job creation. I don't believe in aid. I believe it should be job creation. So if governments help stimulate that by reducing taxes, by making it easy on startups, I'm all for that. So I really can't answer the question of what should governments do across Africa, but I think what's a more interesting angle of your question, if I may, Tobias, I don't know you, so maybe this is going to be a little bit forward of me, but I would say rephrase the question to, at least this is how I rephrase your question. What can I do to have them focus on what I think matters most? And again, my answer is the same. Get to know what they think matters most and find the common ground between the two of you. Other questions? While we're looking, I would encourage, for those of you who wanted to know more about getting yourself AI certified or partnering with Delivery, here's the contact information showing on the screen. It's our website that you can contact us through. It's Rokaya who's been moderating, her email, and Rokaya's WhatsApp. And she is our point of contact based here in Kenya and would welcome a dialogue with you. Yes, Rokaya.
We have two more additional inputs. One from Nyambura saying, I'm passionate about training in AI and organizations and SMEs. Other than obviously taking certification, what else do you think there's there to know? Are you expanding an East Africa team? And how does that go for somebody that want to join your team?
Thank you for that. So the last question, to join our team, contact Rokaya. Because what we would do is we do a lot of programs and we would try each other out. We dance a little bit. I believe in dancing before we sign any contracts. So let's dance. I think what else is needed is when I go back to the screen of the literacy, fluency, those steps, I think you've got to get from literacy, fluency to adoption. And everyone's at a different stage. And then once you're at adoption, it's getting all of the return on investment by putting it more and more in the organization, whether again, it's on the sales side, on the revenue side, or the cost side. And lastly, the jagged edge thing. You've got to be able to navigate the jagged edge and recover quickly. So I believe where I see Kenya right now is there's pretty good literacy. There's a lot of pockets of fluency. Clearly, you've got the fintechs and others that are heavily into adoption because this is how they even grew up, was using AI. But I think you still see the bigger multinationals struggling with it, and it's usually tied to the mindsets and the capabilities of the mid-level and senior level management. So that's where I see it going, is the mid-level, senior level management. For me, SMEs and entrepreneur startups, they're the quicker adopters, much quicker to adopt because they have maybe more to lose, but they're willing to take more risk than the big companies are. Hope that helps.
One more question for you, Deborah, is while AI is increasingly used day for day in managerial activities, does overall reliance on it create vulnerabilities such as security risk or reduced human oversight?
Thank you for that. So my quick answer is I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm going to give you an analogy. Did the internet create an over-reliance versus using paper books to find information? Does my typing speed create an over-reliance on my keyboard instead of writing out a letter with paper and pen? Data vulnerability, folks, that's the generation, that's the world we're in. The interconnectivity, the data, that's our world. And I think it's up to us on this call and those of you working every day to figure out how to keep your world safe. We're all figuring it out, back to the jagged edge. So are we more vulnerable than we were, 20 years ago, 40 years ago? I don't know. We're more connected. We're more informed. So I would like to think with the new information and informed comes the increased ability to protect ourselves. If that's the opposite of vulnerable, is to protect. But great question. Nice and philosophical. Thank you.
What are the tasks that most organizations are still locked in that the Gen Z tech savvy can efficiently offer solution to?
Whoa, slow that down. Do it again.
What are the tasks that more organizations are still locked in that Gen Z that are tech savvy can efficiently offer solutions to?
Oh, wow. So many. That's a great question. It's a long list. The quickest I would say is the integration of the different tools. So for example, I gave you the example of I research something on Perplexity, and then I go deeper on Claude, and then I have it write the prompt for Gamma. I learned that technique from a Gen Z. And so if I would spend, literally guys, 5 or 7 elapsed days trying to formulate what's the story I'm telling and what's my update going to look like, and I have to draft my slides and I have to think about the flow, and then I got to go check all my numbers in that business model that's on that Excel spreadsheet, or I have to go check what was the last speech given by my boss or a president on something. Well, now we feed all those inputs into pick it, Perplexity, Claude, it goes to Gemini, and boom, I have the presentation. So the Gen Zs accelerate my time. They don't necessarily know what I want the story to say, but they can help me get there. Likewise, the Gen Zs can take anything where there's a lot of different spreadsheets and files and put together organization systems that just smoke. And so I think, and this is now kind of a little bit of a testimony, but in my world, I have had the Gen Zs be able to more quickly and efficiently organize me and get me out of old methods. Now, I'm older than most of you, but I would say the Gen Zs, for the speed of organization and getting to conclusions, is what they should take. So whatever that task looks like for you is what I would suggest.
We have about 3 more questions. One is kind of funny, asking, in your experience, what is the major challenge you have encountered while working with the Gen Z talent, and what are the resolutions you might recommend?
And I'm going to have you repeat it.
Asking about your experience with the Gen Z talent, what was the most challenge you faced, and how did you resolve it, and recommendations on that?
No offense, I'm going to have to think about 10 seconds on that one. So go to the next question.
The next question is, if you could make a wild prediction about the future of AI, what would it be?
I love these last questions. Give me the last one.
I'm sure. Okay, we're receiving kind of a lot in the chat asking, in a high turnover AI transition, how do we identify if the skill gap is a training failure or an intuitive rejection to the AI tool itself?
Okay, I'm ready to take these on. So take me back to the question about the Gen Zs.
Asking, in your experience, what is the major challenge you have encountered while working with the Gen Z talent, and what are the resolutions you might recommend?
So I think the major challenge I had was they don't work like I do or like Gen X, Gen Y, millennials. They don't work like all of those. And yes, we could put in that same bucket of every generation has changes, but theirs was more radically changed. I would say it goes to, so the example of the radical change would be the empathy, the need for empathy. And I personally, just true confessions, I'm not an empathetic person. So this was really hard for me. The empathy, the frequency of affirmations, and affirmations are usually thought of as positive, but what I've discovered with Gen Zs is they're also the direct feedback of, I need you to respond to this quicker or that quicker. The third one that I've not experienced as much, but my colleagues have, so I'll throw it in, is the prioritization of life, of friends, of non-work over work. For example, they decide they just kind of don't like how somebody looked at them at work and they're not going to go. Or they really promised some friends they were going to go have drinks at 6, so they're not going to finish the report they promised you. And in some of our cultures, that's shocking. And I would say how I dealt with it is just, this is actually a cool way to deal with it. This is a little tip for everybody, Gen Zs or not. You put the monkey back on the Gen Z's shoulders. The monkey is the metaphor for the responsibility to get something done. So if they try to throw the monkey to you or throw the ball to you, sorry, I can't get this report done because I got to go see my friends. You say, oh, and you give it right back to them. Yeah, we need the report done. So what's another option? What's your plan B for getting this done? Options and plan Bs are really easy for Gen Zs. They see lots of variables. So bounce them how to get it done. You don't take responsibility for solving their problem. Make them responsible for giving you options to solve their problem. Okay, next question, Rokai. I didn't write it down.
It's about the wild prediction. If you could make wild prediction about the future of AI, what would it be?
People are making a lot of money off of these wild predictions these days. So I would answer this with saying, I love science fiction. And my master's of technology degree is in a thing called foresight. If you've never heard of this, write it down. If you are looking for the coolest master's degree to have, foresight. Stellenbosch offers it in South Africa. Houston offers it, Texas, and maybe Hawaii. And it's like strategy on steroids, where it's not wild predictions as much as it's very well thought through scenarios, plural, of the future. The belief is there's not just one future, there's multiple futures. So if you're a science fiction fan, you know about these movies where Gwyneth Paltrow, Sliding Doors, where you have multiple futures. What if you missed that train today? What if you missed that cab and got in a second cab? Your life might go a totally different direction. I love those kind of science fiction things, or the multiple universes and all that. So my wild predictions are often rooted in scenarios. So, the one scenario is the apocalyptic science fiction scenario. Go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger and, the Terminator. And they're going to take over and then they're going to do something to keep themselves from self-destructing. Okay, that is one. That's not my wild prediction, but that is out there in the science fiction world. Others are that it really steps in and takes roles that humans have not been good at due to our subjectivity, our limitations. We already know about robotics and certain things that would be unsafe for humans. If you haven't seen the movie Mercy, it came out about a month or two ago, and it's set in the future where the judge and the jury is an AI, and they look at all of the what do you want to call it? The facts of the case with the coldness of an AI. But there's a twist. I'm not going to give it away. Spoiler alert, but I'm not going to give away the twist. But Mercy is the name of the movie. And I would say one prediction I have is that yes, that movie will come true. It's a little different than Minority Report and the others, where it gets in your head and predicts a behavior and has false positives. But that's another prediction, that AI will step into roles like judge and jury, which today are very flawed due to our human flaws. I guess my last wild prediction would be maybe a little bit like there's an old movie, Sylvester Stallone, Sandra Bullock, called Demolition Man, Wesley Snipes. And it's old now, but it forecasted America in 2030. And it had a lot of AI, how our life changed, even down to intimate details like having a relationship with somebody totally became a virtual reality headset thing. And I think that's a wild prediction I would have is AI will step into our relationships. You see it some now with counselors, you see it with people. I had a man the other day tell me, a man in East Africa, he's probably 45, and he said, in my culture, you can't ask for advice or counsel. You look weak, but I can ask my AI. So I believe there'll be a prediction where the humans will feel like we have a relationship with the AI, but clearly it's not a reciprocated relationship. Those would be my wild predictions.
We have a last
And
one,
yep.
which is in a high turnover AI transition. How do we identify if the skill gap is a training failure or an intuitive rejection to the AI tool itself?
So if you have assuming you mean a high turnover during AI transition. So you're saying that people are leaving the organization as you're implementing AI. I guess that's what that means. First, I'm gonna probably have a little bit of an exception, if I understood you right, with that hypothesis or that assertion. Everyone says there's some bad stories out there about loss of jobs due to AI. And the research is still coming in. It's too soon to claim it. I mean, if big companies like Amazon say they laid off due to AI, to be honest, there's a lot of other reasons they're laying off. It's not just that they have used AI to replace some jobs. I grew up in the era of the automotive industry and putting robotics in. And I can tell you then that was the big fear. And sure, if you have a guy who's been screwing in a screwdriver and all of a sudden a robot does it, where does that guy's job go? And I think now we're smart enough to say, wow, that guy can do more than screw in a screwdriver and throw a screw in every day in a car. So let's have him focus on the maintenance of the robots. Let's have him work on the workflow of the robots. Things the robots can't do, but humans can. And I see the same thing with AI. The turnover isn't turnover if you mean by job loss is turnover. I don't think you mean financial turnover, but maybe you do. If you mean job loss turnover, we're seeing the jobs are replaced. The jobs are exchanged. We just did a case study this last week about a large bank in Tanzania that switched totally to AI for decisioning the microloans. And this was a pretty highly intensive human effort. Tanzania needs all the jobs it can get, so it's not logical they would put this in and let people go. And in fact, they didn't. They put it in, they can take on a much higher volume of loans for decisioning. And all the folks who used to do that are now working on the models, are working on improving the outputs of the AI. So it's more relevant to more and different consumers in Tanzania. So I think the transition is one of more adoption, and you, depending on your role, you need to be focused on how can you upskill or reskill these folks, because again, the research is still out, but it's Deborah's hypothesis. As many jobs that will go away due to AI, that many will be created somewhere else. If I could see you, I would do that. Maybe I should see you. If I could put my camera on right quick. It's sort of that phenomena that for something gets pushed down here, something gets pushed up here. So you may have a reduction in jobs here, but you're going to have an increase somewhere else. And we see that in the financial services sector. Clearly, they need to get rid of some back office stuff. We see it very interesting in the legal sector, because the legal sector is one that should definitely be disintermediated because things are available. Management consulting, we definitely see firms are bringing in much less people, but those people they are bringing in and the ones that don't go there go to other interesting jobs. So I think the turnover or job loss, we're still researching it. I think you're going to have as many new ones come up as the old ones go away.
I have one last question. I think that would be the wrap up of the presentation, asking, with the multi-generation leadership, as AI evolves, what basic must be kept to be acceptable to all?
Oh, what basic kind of human trait or management behavior needs to be kept that is universal across our generations? You know, guys, I go for the classic. If you read the Bible, you know there's supposedly the golden rule. I'm not actually sure it's in the Bible, but we all say it is. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. If you know that golden rule, do to others as you would have them do to you. I think that's universal. I like the platinum rule. The platinum rule, if you haven't heard it, is do unto others as they wish to be done to. Do unto others as they wish to be done to, which means if I'm working with a Gen Z who wants a lot of feedback, I have to give a lot of feedback. I personally may only need feedback once every 6 months or a year. That's the golden rule. That means because I only need feedback every 6 months, or I only need a check-in every 2 weeks, that's all I give someone else. And I think the universal truth is the reversed. Get to know your people. And that goes if you're a Gen Z, getting to know the born before computers, or that goes if you are a baby boomer, Gen X, Gen Y, millennial, and you need to get to know the Gen Zs. Get to know them as people. And then try to meet their needs and be transparent or frank on the classic crucial conversation method. I hear you saying this. I can do this. We've got a gap. Let's work together to close the gap. Those are universal conversations that work across all the generations, I think. These are great questions. Anything else?
I think we're done with the question. Much more of comments on the session.
Perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have really enjoyed this, even though it's kind of a one-way experience. It's a little strange. I do hope the next time we get together, I want to say a thank you to KEPSA and to all of the different organizers for putting this together and for you all to spend a bit of your Friday morning with me. And I'll put our information back up on the screen for you to get hold of us if you would like in the future, because we would love to continue the conversations, whether it's Gen Z, whether it's certifications, would be wonderful by our guard. And Rokaya, any closing comments you want to make?
You guys have my contact information if you want to know more about how we do the AI adoption roadmap or certification. So feel free to reach out to me. Here's my email and phone number reachable on WhatsApp. And I also put, I saw a couple of you asked if Deborah is reachable on LinkedIn. I put her LinkedIn there so you can find it in the chat. And thank you so much for attending today.
Thank you all very much. I'll stay on a little bit and read the chat. And if there's anything else I need to respond to on the chat, I will be glad to. Okay. Thank you for these compliments. Thank you for the insight there. Alphonse, I don't know if you're still on, but your question about youth from rural and marginalized communities and digital literacy, activate AI. I believe to activate AI in more rural areas, being that clearly that the tech infrastructure has to be there. I know a lot of people are working to bring that to the areas. So I think just like you probably worked hard on electrification, on 4G access, keep on working on it to get the AI there. I see groups here in Kenya at hotels and conferences trying to figure it out. So I know there's a lot of groups working on it. I agree with the private sector to create jobs. Okay. Oh, interesting. How are global companies actually sourcing AI and cybersecurity talent today in East Africa, and what signals make a candidate stand out? Oh, I can answer that. The signals that have you stand out are two things. I'm not sure, Jeffrey, if you're still on, but this fits anyone who's wanting to stand out. I will tell you the trick that most recruiters do is check your LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever you're posting, and you need to be posting on the topic that you're interested in. So, for example, this is a real story. Deloitte, which is a big name in some countries, and it has a huge cybersecurity following. They may get your CV, and no offense, all the CVs kind of look the same these days. They may get your CV. The first thing they do is go to your LinkedIn. And if you haven't been showing your passion for cybersecurity through posting interesting things, through sharing what you've been doing in cybersecurity, they're not interested. And this is a little bit with anything to do with the technologies that are all new. Nobody has 50 years experience in this stuff. But if you show you're interested and you're reposting and you're engaged in groups, that's what they want to see. So that and micro credentials. I think micro credentials go a long way because university degrees, be careful, I work for a university, but university degrees are viewed as but the micro credentials show one, you're taking initiative and you're hungry, and two, that you have accomplished in somebody else's eyes a credential. So Jeffrey, that's how I would answer that. These were great questions. Yeah. Okay. And I hope to my organizers, are we done and I can drop off, or do I need to stay on for any sort of after conversation? I see we still have 56 people on. They may be here for the next session.
I think we're good to wrap up the session ourselves.
Okay. Thank you all for everyone who I met virtually. 50, 60, 70 of you, and I hope our paths cross someday soon, and we all stay dry and safe and no floods. Enjoy your AI. Get on Perplexity. Bye-bye.